Welcome back, everyone. It was week 6 in the Reddit League over the past week. My name is Zotomo, and I'm joined, as always, by Calamity.
Hello.
And our guest this week is Paschtetli. You have run a couple competitions of your own, and we finally have you on the show to talk about this one. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, we got our second world map here this time, which means a lot of high scores, but also a couple interesting low ones. It wasn't as nice as Lakes of the World, that's for sure. Let's jump into Division 1 Calamity. And yeah, a couple perfect games and a couple just 1 point off for them.
Yeah, we essentially have another week of draws here. Yeah, pretty much close to or 25k here for everyone except Ice, who had a pretty weak game, and Raidman as well, who surprisingly dropped quite a few points and lost his game against Blinky's first loss of the season, actually. So that's not a great showing from him. On the other side, Chicago being a bit unlucky to have to give up his first, give Simi his first points of the season. Probably would have preferred some other opponent, but again, looking at the other results, didn't really matter unless you got Ice or Raidman. Probably going to end up in a draw here. And yeah, perfect scores for Blinky and Boxer, not massively surprising. And yeah, everyone else with a draw, but Orpheus and Bulgur with the two weakest, in quotation marks, results out of the draw only get 1 point each compared to the other draws with 2 points mostly.
Yeah, definitely. Paschtetli, anything from you here?
Yeah, sure. I always think it's stunning to see how good they do in these short times. I played C myself, and I really was surprised to see so many players have such a good score, and that, yeah.
Indeed. Well, let's take a look at that Division 1 table, how it's shaping up after 6 weeks. And unfortunately, Blinky, with his win against Raidman, still doesn't beat him in the table. He is just 1 point off, pretty much on a score differential here. But other than that, not a whole lot of change at all. Again, draws, everybody earning a point or two, keeps things pretty stable, Calamity.
Yeah, after Raidman's first loss, Boxer now has a bit of a gap at the front, and since we've only got 3 weeks remaining in Division 1, he seems pretty set for a spot in the playoffs here. Behind him, though, it's very close, with 3 players on 14 points, and then Verdok on 13, and Mr. Blue on 11. And I think it's almost impossible to predict with any certainty on who's going to make it to the playoffs. I think if we just look at their performances so far this season, you could probably say Raidman, Blinky, and Orpheus are the favorites, not just because they're currently in those spots, but anything can happen, really. We've seen some surprises in the past. And at the back, the players are nicely split with 2 points, all from one player to the next. And Ice and Simi play each other next week as well, so the loser of that match is almost certainly going to be relegated.
Definitely, Paschtetli.
I really like the fact that Blinky won this game and managed to get to the position of third, and the rest stayed the same, so not much there. The only fact that Simi got his first 2 points. No. Yes, he did. Yes, I think he did. And that is also great. Maybe with some luck he can get some points more, and maybe even get the 9th place.
Definitely. Well, the next map coming up on the schedule for Division 1 and for all of us is Saskatchewan, a very interesting one. We'll take a look at that at the end of the show. And a French derby there, Blinky and Bulgur, Calamity, but probably one of the most interesting matches to watch for this week will be Orpheus and Mr. Blue, both right on the edge of that playoff spot.
Yeah, definitely. If you look towards the top, Orpheus against Mr. Blue is the match you've got to watch out for. Probably already Mr. Blue's last chance, since I think if he loses this one, if you look, Blinky's probably the favorite against Bulgur, and Raidman's probably the favorite against Chicago. So if Mr. Blue were to lose this, he'd be 6 points behind. Let's call it 5 if he gets a bonus point. And with only 2 matches then remaining, it seems almost impossible to still make it for the playoffs. So it's definitely a must-win game for him. Also very interesting, though, as I mentioned before, is Simi against Ice. pretty much the last chance for both of them to make it out of that direct relegation zone. Simi has the slightly easier last 2 weeks after that against Raidman and Bulgur, with Ice playing against Raidman and Boxer. But definitely they need the points now if they still want to make it out of there. And yeah, Chicago is the only non-European in Division 1. It's probably the only one who's somewhat close even to Saskatchewan. Now, whether that gives him any sort of advantage, I don't know. But just purely geographically, he's not too far away. Maybe he's heard of a couple more cities or towns than the rest of us have. But still, Saskatchewan has a pretty practice-heavy map. He's going to have a tough time against Raidman nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Paschtetli, anything you're looking forward to in Division 1 in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, sure. The match between Blinky and Bulgur and the two newcomers, I think will be interesting, even though I think it's pretty safe to say that Blinky is gonna win that one. No pressure though, and also Wordog and Boxer, I think I'm also gonna look forward, or I am actually looking forward to, because I also know Boxer, and I think I'm definitely rooting for him.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, he's looking to get back to that final after being there last season and just coming up short against Raidman. Well, let's move on to Division 2 and their results on the improved world map. And again, lots of really nice scores for these really outstanding players. A couple interesting ones. Very unfortunate for Shumi and Max. They're both getting perfect scores, but against each other. Paschtetli.
Yeah, that's that's kind of sad, because I think they are on a pretty yeah, they're 7th and 8th, and they both would have needed these points to get out of the relegation danger zone, and but I think they can also get back up if they have luck, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Calamity, not a bad score from you there, but in the basement, unfortunately, equal to the task, only a draw for you.
Yeah, a week of the draws, as I mentioned in Division 1 too, but I got enough points for a bonus point there, so I'm fine with that. Basement loses out on that as well. And yeah, I said last week that the loser between Shumi and Max would be in for a rough time, and well, essentially they both won now. So it's good for them. Both get away with 3 points in this week. Teskotak with the surprise win as well against Guelo, and Pastek with his first points after some pretty disappointing games for Guelo and Patriots, which essentially for Guelo especially came down to one specific round, and Patriots didn't really have the best game to start with, but also then failed on that one round. And yeah, I mentioned already the 1 point for Basement, but Clyde as well, with only 1 point out of his draw against Tor.
Yeah, we mentioned Teskotak last week, that he's kind of one of those players that kind of shows up every once in a while, and world maps tend to be where he shows up, and sure enough, didn't even really need to worry about Guelo Wizard not putting up a good score. His score alone was enough for a good result this week. Moving over to the table, we see quite a bit of shuffling towards that top, with Guelo and in the basement kind of not getting too many points and cast each other out there. Calamity, you do reap a little bit of a benefit. You and Tall moving up to the top. Middle of the pack stays the same, and Teskotak moves up just a tad with his win. But yeah, things are getting pretty kind of ugly down there at the bottom. It is very close between kind of 12th and maybe 10th, 9th place, Calamity.
Yeah, it is pretty close down there. Definitely Max and Shumi needed those points this week, if you look at how their opponents also got some very crucial points, with the exception of Patriots. But it's even more interesting at the top, with now 4 points between 1st and 8th. Guelo drops down from 1st down to 3rd, and told me jump past him due to that not great game. But yeah, those 3 points for Shumi especially also put him back into the fight for promotion. And we've got 2 more perfect games now to look out for in the tiebreakers as well, for Shumi and Max. Yeah, Max probably still, even with that win, not really a contender for promotion. Potentially, if he has a stellar end to the season. I mean, technically he's only 5 points behind Bluekey, but yeah, he's probably gonna have to win every single game if he really wants a shot at it.
Yeah, Paschtetli, we're officially halfway through the season here, more than halfway through the season for Division 2 here, and those top kind of playoff spots, you think they're going to stay that way, or are they going to be a little bit more shuffling around?
Yeah, I really believe in Calamity and also Tall Impala to get in the promotion spots. But I also think it's worth mentioning the gap in the aces. All players just until Max got over 10 aces, and then Patriots and Pestec have only 2 and 4. I think that's and Tescotek, of course. I forgot about him. I think that's also worth mentioning.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully, Calamity, that clutch comes through this time and you don't slip up at the final hurdle for that. But we take on Saskatchewan next week, and a few interesting matchups. Calamity, a little bit easier week for you, perhaps, facing off somebody from the lower half of the table. But things still very tight, fighting towards the top. In this one, Geoguessr definitely doesn't have an easy matchup against Max FI if he wants to get back up in the top of the table there, Paschtetli.
Yeah, and that's true. And I'm also looking forward to the match between Schludi and Pastek, just because Schludi is Swiss, as well as I am. And also, it's interesting that we have no derbies this week, but we have like 3 French and 4 American players actually. It's just like my division. We also have not great diversity. Yeah.
Yeah, Calamity.
Yeah, he said a bit of an easier week against Shumi, the guy who just got 25k last week. So don't know about that one.
Well, I mean, it was a world map, so.
I guess, but to me, Shumi in this division is probably the most unpredictable out of everyone. For everyone else, I've got a pretty good idea about how they'll perform on what maps. But for Shumi, I still, like, even after 1.5 seasons of watching him and playing against him, I still just have no real idea when he's going to perform well and when he's going to perform badly. But I still, like, I've just got to focus on my own game in Saskatchewan, just get as good of a score as I can, and, well, whatever happens, happens. I think I've had 2 draws in a row. No, never mind. I had 1 draw last week and then 1 2 weeks before. So yeah, I just got to get as close to 25k as I can. Yeah, the other match for promotion there, Basement against Clyde's, also pretty interesting. Basement hasn't had the best run of form lately. He's only picked up 3 points in the last 3 weeks. So he's dropped down the table a bit. He was first at one point and he's now fallen all the way back to 5th. So he's going to start turning it around sometime soon if he wants to fight for promotion. I know he always says, yeah, he's happy as long as he doesn't get relegated. But yeah, he's still got a chance for promotion. Just needs to get some good results. And yeah, for the other side of the table, Max needs those points against Geoguessr, who's just had a pretty bad game on a world map. So maybe Geoguessr's had a bit of a hit in his self-confidence after that one, and also Max tends to do pretty well on pinpoint heavy maps. So definitely could be upset potential here. The same goes actually for Tescotek against Pluki, because yeah, as you mentioned it before, Tescotek just sometimes randomly shows up with a great score. And so far, and the past 3 seasons, he's been the second best in his seed in California in season 3, and he's been the second best in Minnesota in season 1. I got a yellow card in Pennsylvania in season 2. But so far for the US and Canadian states, he's always shown up. It could definitely happen to take some points off Pluki there. And yeah, for Toll and Schludi, it should be a relatively easy week, but you never know.
Yeah, there are 4 Americans in this division, and we're not on home soil, so to speak, but we are in the right hemisphere at least. And so we'll see how familiar they are with their great neighbor to the north in Canada for next week. Let's take a look at the Division 3 results for our world map, and it was very slim pickings for the top half of the table, surviving with scares across the board practically. Freckles keeps his perfect start to the season so far, but gets a draw only against Ordboka, Calamity.
Yeah, it's kind of unsurprising that that matchup ended with a draw. But yeah, some important wins for LCN, Barry, and Close there, who all sort of make a jump in the table, as we'll see in a bit. And Paulinho hasn't picked up a point since I mentioned him as my favorite for P3 about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So he's on a downward spiral here. Not a bad game this week from him, but just outside of the draw range and just outside of the bonus point range as well. So he won't be happy about this one. Quite funnily, actually, I think it's Radox's score that's keeping him outside of that bonus point range, which is also quite hilarious, because that also means, even if you're playing against a red carded player, always put in effort, get a good score, because it might keep someone else out of the bonus point range.
Indeed, yeah. Paschtetli, your compatriot there in Radox, up against a disqualified player in Skydiving Ferret, withdrawing, but still putting up a pretty good score, 24-5.
Yeah, I think that's very admirable, and I've just looked at the seed, and I think it was very favoring Radox, since I think he did fairly well in Uruguay last season, and also Germany is not that hard, and also in Italy it's not that hard to pinpoint. But I think he really would have also earned a victory without a Ferret being disqualified.
Yeah, score definitely in the top half of those competitors there. As we take a look at the Division 3 table, and a bit of shuffling around in the middle, but unfortunately for those people towards the bottom, the relegation spots don't really move, and as Calamity mentioned, that Paulinho dropping down into that relegation fight.
Yeah, for Benica, it was a bit unlucky. I forgot to mention that earlier. He had a very close loss, only lost by about 200 points, and got no bonus points for that either. So he stays down there with Seppo. And yeah, Paulinho now dropping back to 9th. Let's see, maybe he'll come back up. But yeah, Close and Radox making a jump for Radox, obviously because of the free week there, free bye week. But yeah, as I said, LCN and Barry, some important wins there for Close as well. They're all sort of pushing up there. It looks like WTF has pretty much solidified his place in the top 3 now. And yeah, I think everyone else is probably fighting for that 4th place. Still could very well be some changes up there, especially if you look at aces, for example, as well, with WTF only having 4 aces, which is quite a bit lower than most other people around him up there. But he's got 5 wins so far out of 6 games. So yeah, still in a good position. And Freckles, of course, probably won't be able, no one will be able to get him off of that 1st place anymore at this point.
Definitely, yeah. Paschtetli, it's not only about your scores, it's about just beating your opponent for sure. Any thoughts about how this division's going to finish up? We are halfway. Radox maybe getting back into those top 4 positions. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. We don't know, but I'm actually thinking or hoping also for Ordboka to get promoted, because I think he was last season in my division and got promoted. So I would really like if he also could get promoted this season again. And if Radox manages to get back up or up in the promotions area, that would also be great.
Definitely. Let's take a look at the Division 3 matchups in Saskatchewan coming up. And Calamity, it is a top of the table fight, all 4 of them taking on each other. And Paulinho, as you mentioned, will get a bit of a turnaround here. He's up against Skydiving Ferret, so he'll get a bye week. So he will move up, hopefully up in the table, picking up 3 free points there. But yeah, that top of the table clash is going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, we've got another season decider here. If Freckles wins against WTF, I think then you can call it quits there, because I think he's got a relatively, in quotation marks, easy end to the season as well, because then after this he's played everyone currently in the top 5. Yeah, LCN against Ordboka is interesting as well. I think if LCN wins this, then it's going to be really interesting still even for that fight for second place potentially, if we assume WTF might be losing against Freckles as well. Because then, like, if Barry wins as well and maybe Radox wins against Close, then suddenly we have like 5 people or so between 15 and 13 points from second to 6. So it could still end up incredibly close come next week. And there's still quite a few games to be played. Season's long. As you mentioned at the start, we've just crossed the halfway point for the 12-player divisions. But yeah, if all of those things happen, like I just mentioned, then Freckles would be in there with probably a 4-point gap, assuming someone out of WTF or Boca would get a bonus point. But that would be a very good position for him. And yeah, Paulinho with the freebie probably moves back out of the relegation zone. And yeah, of course, Hugo against Seppo and Radox against Close are some very important matchups as well. I think for both of those matchups, you can say that the winner will have another chance to maybe go for a promotion push if everything works out well. And the loser will probably have to focus more so on fighting against relegation or just, keeping himself in sort of the mid-table area.
Yeah, Paschtetli, the matchup between Berry Fishy Bear and Benica, very important for both of them for very different reasons. Berry Fishy Bear trying to keep up with the top, and Benica trying to prevent relegation.
Yeah, I favor actually no one here. I think it's pretty hard to say who's gonna win, also because Benica is playing a home map, as to say, and also Barry is not that far away from Saskatchewan, I think, and so this should be interesting. And also the whole table could look a bit different next week, because we have so much close and interesting matches to watch next week, and yeah, looking forward to them.
Definitely. We'll see how our only Canadian can do in his home country, in his home, maybe it's not his home province for sure. I don't think he lives in Saskatchewan, but hopefully he still has a little bit of an advantage there going up against a very tough opponent. So moving on to Division 4, 4A, this one in their improved world stats, and we get to you, Paschtetli, here in this one, and unfortunately just missing out on a win for you there.
Yeah, I'm continuing my bad luck streak, which started in Iceland. But I got a bonus point, so that is at least fine for me. And yeah, I really hoped to beat Solar Sensei this week, but you can't have everything, so yeah. And what also I think is worth mentioning is that Hexalt has lost his game against H-Town, and also only got 17,000 points, which is quite surprising.
Yeah, Calamity, a couple wins here for some of those top of the table players, but not just wins, huge wins in terms of that score differential.
Yeah, pretty big score differences here. The Division 4 seed was a bit interesting. It had one location in Thailand where it was not impossible to get out of some broken coverage, etc., but very, very difficult. I know I didn't get out of it. I don't know. Some people probably did. But, you could get a pretty good guess just based on landscape, but a lot of people lost a lot of points there. Yeah, some pretty poor weeks for Hexal and Hedikmi and Neusel as well. But yeah, that pretty much explains a lot of the big score differences here. The Division 4 seed was by far the most difficult. Yeah, good wins for most of the players at the top there. Faraban, H-Town, Lunacy, Nakro got back into the fight as well with that win. And yeah, as we said, Hexalt, that's a pretty bad loss for him against the direct promotion rival, and also, by a lot of points. So that'll be interesting if he comes back from that, or if now his spirit is broken.
Yeah, let's take a look at the Division 4A table, and Hexalt doesn't lose his position at the top of the table, but does bring him all the way back down into contention with Firebond there, and H-Town and Lunacy also only a point behind. At the other end of the table, though, Paschtetli, you and Neusel, the Swiss duo, struggling for survival in Division 4A. How do you think this one's going to shape up? Only a few more weeks left to go.
Actually, I have a question. I'm not sure if I actually have a draw. I'm quite surprised to see that. I have to quickly take a look.
You don't.
I don't.
Nope,
Yeah.
it's 204.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, I think I can get up out of the relegation zone if I manage to win against Hedikmi, and I think I didn't play Nakira, if I'm correct. But it's gonna be hard for me, that's for sure. And with the right amount of practice, I think I can manage to do that.
Yeah, and Calamity at the other end of the table towards the top, it is very close. Only 3 points separating first from sixth, and Solar Sensei is only one more point behind that.
Yeah, Hexalt's loss brought the whole table closer together again, and actually Hexalt is leading the table with a negative score difference. I'm pretty sure we've never had this at such a late point in the season, which is pretty noteworthy. He does probably have the easiest run-in out of all the promotion contenders, though, so as long as he doesn't make another mistake like in this week, or well, with 17,000 points, he must have made multiple. If he doesn't have another bad week, such as this week, then he should be fine. I say should be because we've seen enough upsets in this division, and you can never really be sure. And with only 3 points between first and sixth, and yeah, even then, Solar Sensei, Hedikmi, and even Paschtetli not too far behind. But yeah, for Neusel, he looks to be pretty set in 10th place, and he'd need 2 wins in his last 3 to even have a chance of making it to the relegation playoff. And I don't think he has the easiest final matchups either. So yeah, good luck to him, but it's looking pretty bleak.
Yeah, indeed. Well, let's take a look at their matchups for Saskatchewan in the coming week. And yeah, Paschtetli, you mentioned it's not going to be easy for you to get out of that relegation spot, and certainly not this week, like face off against number 1 Hexalt.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that the last week did break his spirit, and that he's not gonna practice at all for next week, because Saskatchewan is very practicable, and I hope I can win against him. But yeah, I am not sure. For other games, I think Solar Sensei and Hedikmi is also gonna be interesting to see. They're only 1 point apart, and that there can happen anything, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And Calamity towards the top again, Firebond and Lunacy Echo, definitely one to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely. Second against fourth here, fighting for promotion, and the same kind of goes for H-Town against Nakiro, just third against fifth, 1 place further down. And yeah, also kind of the same as Paschtetli mentioned for Solar Sensei against Hedikmi, because we're at the stage in the season where if you win this game, you can even turn your whole season around and still go for a promotion push. But if you lose, then you're probably locked inside of that relegation battle. And yeah, Hexalt against Paschtetli, it's going to be a tough game for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, for Neusel against Pork Steaks as well. With Pork Steaks, you never know. And I would have said before last week, I would have said Hexalt is the clear favorite against you. But after last week's showing, you never know. Maybe Saskatchewan is a bad map for him too.
Indeed. Well, let's take a look at the other half of Division 4, Division 4B, and their results from their Improved World matchups. And this one scored a little bit better off, but 2 low scores, and there with Theos and Edward, both towards the bottom of the table for them, for that one. But yeah, very nice wins, thankfully, for Steelers Nick. Not the best of scores. Tyconic is not putting up great numbers, Calamity, but still manages to get a draw.
Yeah, it's kind of been the theme of the last few weeks, with most of the top 3 in Steelers Nick, Tyconic, and Diesel just kind of coasting through, not showing the greatest performances, but still always winning. Diesel this time around with a pretty good score, the second highest. Fantastic performance from Soviet here, and some very important 2 points for Wakelok as well. He'll definitely be more happy about those two than Tychonicus on the other end of that match. And yeah, we also see the first actually bad performance from Edward this week. He's been this season he's been pretty solid so far, even though he's not always ended up on the better side of things. And yeah, Punt Noob also kind of his season's been going pretty averagely, averagely to badly. Not very many impressive performances here, and a 23,000 from Steal the Snick was definitely beatable, but yeah, you'd have to get a bit more than 20,000 points here.
Definitely. And yeah, Paschtetli, I barely survived. I don't have a very good score compared to the rest of the field, but thankfully I get one of those nice little lucky breaks where your opponent doesn't really show up either. So I do walk away with all 3 points.
Yeah, I think world maps especially can go both ways for every player. It was a really hard seed, and didn't really expect that. And I think most of the other players in this division also did not. It got a few surprises. Like Steal the Snick, I expected him to do better actually, and yeah, it's also interesting to see that how many diverse countries we have in this division in comparison to my own division, where we only have 3.
Yeah, some of the divisions aren't exactly diverse in this regard, but this one is quite mixed up for sure. Let's take a look at the table then after 6 weeks. And Steal the Snick finally sees himself go to the top of the table with his perfect record, yet to lose a game, surviving each one just by the skin of his teeth. Tychonic is giving that up. 304th doesn't change, but Soviet with his excellent performance jumps up to 5th. And Calamity, yeah, we're way past the halfway mark now for Division 4. That top 3 solidifying themselves pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much. I just wanted to mention, I found it quite funny. Paschtetli said it's a very diverse division, and I looked at it, and 8 of the players were born in an English-speaking country. And yet we've got so many different flags here.
We all speak the same language, but...
Yeah, it's not that diverse after all.
That's British colonialism, I guess.
Yep. But yes, at the top there's nothing new really. Steal the Snick got 1 point more than Tychonicus this week, so they swap places, but they still play each other in the last week of the season, so as long as they sort of stay relatively close together, nothing's decided based on that. And yeah, Wakelok jumps out of the relegation zone, and Soviet, of course, with his great score, also jumps up to 5th place.
Yeah, and Paschtetli had a bad run of form for Pwn Noob, sees him drop into that relegation spot, and this is definitely not the season that Theos would have expected after being relegated from Division 3 last time.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And also, I think it's surprising to see you, Zotomo, to do so good. I really expected you to be like 7th or so. More like last season, and you do surprisingly well, I think, and I just wanna, say that. I just wanted to say that, yeah.
What did I finish last season? I was 5th last season.
You were okay. I think you were like 6th or 7th. Yeah.
A little better than that. A little bit.
It's been a few months.
Yeah, it has been a while, but I think my record is pretty much identical. Like I just sit at that 50-50. Pretty much exactly every single season that I've played, despite whatever the competition throws at me. A couple bad weeks, a couple good lucky ones, so keeps me floating. But yeah, 4 points off of Diesel might be a little tricky for me to be able to catch up to any of them. But I definitely have my hands full as we get to the matchups in Saskatchewan, as I have to take on Steal the Snick. Now, I did give him his first loss last season, Calamity, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you did, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I remember him being a bit salty about that one.
Was it in Italy?
No, it can't have been in Italy.
No, it can't have been.
No.
Let me look it up. Where was
That's what I'm doing right now, because I got to remember which week it was.
Who's going to be quicker?
Well, your internet might be faster than mine.
Asia. It was in Asia.
Oh, okay. I did.
Oh, yeah, I remember that scene. with like three
Yeah.
Kyrgyzstans or so.
Yeah, there was 2 in Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah, that makes a bit more sense than Italy. But yeah, you could definitely beat him again. Just depends on how much practice you put in. And we've seen from him in recent weeks, he's definitely not been unbeatable. There's been a couple weeks where his score could definitely have been beaten, yet it wasn't. But yeah, that's definitely an interesting match. I also think Wakeluk against Edward is a very interesting match down there at the bottom. At Derby as well, UK Derby. And the other matches all look pretty clear on paper, but we're always good for a surprise. Maybe Soviet, after his great performance on the world map, can continue on to that and challenge Diesel. Yeah, maybe Poon can finally get a good game in again. Jake Lyons, with his unlucky season so far, would fit right in there. Yeah, Fierce, he'd need the points, but so far he's looked pretty unspectacular there, and it'll be difficult against Tychonicus.
Yeah. Paschtetli, anything you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm looking forward also to your match, Zotomo, just because I know you've beaten me last season in the American States map, and I think you weren't very pleased with your performance.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that.
And I'm looking forward to see how you're gonna do this season on the same kind of category, and yeah, I think that's also one thing I want to mention is Poon Noob against Jay Lyons, just because I know both players, and I'm very much looking forward also to see how this is gonna turn out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Jay Lyons is actually currently playing in an American-only tournament with North American locations. I think Canada is included in there a bit. So he might have been practicing, if not the actual location, the general idea of the country, so to speak. So familiar with those signs and how all that works out. So definitely an interesting matchup for that. Well, moving on to our final division, Division 5 and A. We've got a couple interesting results here for sure, Paschtetli, and yeah, some pretty decent scores. But the pretty much the top keep winning. That's all. That's the story so far.
Yeah, that's true. It's also not very surprising in Division 5. I think it was. It's not that rare to see some players to do good and some players just to do bad continuously. It's also in relation to the amount of practice they put in. Some people just do not practice at all, and they're most likely to be in the lower divisions and the lower positions. And some people just, especially newcomers who got a place in Division 5 and really put in practice, they can get promoted with not with that much practice or work.
Yeah, Calamity, a really good win for Marcus Fenn there. Doesn't really help him too much, but does play spoilers for Kiribati.
Yeah, definitely. Just kind of lucked into a win there. Yeah, shocker from Kiribati there, and not getting promoted with results like these thrown in there sort of every 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah, Geoguessr, that's more like it. Still not a win, just a draw. He's not having the luckiest season either, but with performances like that, maybe something's still possible. And Mr. Fish with a great performance, that gives him exactly 0 points. So not that great for him personally. It must always, I didn't actually check for this week, but that must be the closest loss of the week, with only 105 points behind Sipkiest, who keeps winning every week. Yeah, GRH was competitive for the first time this season as well, but he also gets 0 points for it against Sky Blue. And yeah, Niels beating Heyimini is also a bit of a surprise, but leads to a bit of a more interesting table.
Definitely. Well, let's take a look at that table itself here. And yeah, Serbikist still at the top. Ollie and Nils move up with Kiribati and Heyimini's losses. For that one, yeah, Marcus Fenn does pick up a few points, but still in that automatic relegation spot despite his win for this one. So yeah, any thoughts on the table? Again, past that halfway mark, Paschtetli.
I think it's very notable that GRH, I think he was in my division last season, and that was Division 4B, and now he's in 5A and also on the 10th place. I think he's not that motivated to practice, so that makes sense, as I said before. And I'm really also excited to see Geoguessr doing that well, and also Oli and Herjemine, and yeah, I know these players from my own competitions, and I'm looking forward to maybe play against them next season.
Definitely, yeah. Calamity.
Yeah, just gotta bring that in one more time. Zotomo, you were the only person GRH has beaten in his last 15 games of Reddit League.
That's devastating.
Yeah, it's gonna be free.
It was what was it last season? What was the map? It was a world map, wasn't it?
Let me look it up. Where was it again? That's week 5.
Making headlines for all their long
Cambodia.
reasons, right? Oh, Cambodia.
Oh no, not Cambodia.
Okay, well,
I don't want to talk about that.
What are you guys talking about? Cambodia was nice.
My most hated country to play Geoguessr in so far.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't enjoy it, obviously, handing GRH's only win in, what, like a year?
Yep.
So, yeah, not exactly the best memory, but thank you, Calamity, for that.
No worries. Always. You've got 3 more weeks of that, and he's going to be relegated. Yeah, Seb now with a 4-point advantage after both Herjemine and Kiribati lost. And with his last 3 games being against Marcus, Kiribati, and GRH, it looks very unlikely that anyone can still topple him from the top step of the podium there in the direct promotion spot, especially because he'd need to drop points more than once. And even dropping points once out of those last matchups seems quite unlikely. Behind him, though, it's a very close race for the other 2 promotion playoff spots. And gotta mention there, Geoguessr is going to play against 7th, 8th, and 9th in the last 3 weeks, so definitely don't count him out yet. And Oli has the highest total score out of everyone except for Seb, obviously. But he's also got the most difficult finish to the season against Herjemine, Kiribati, and Niels.
Yeah, so definitely a really interesting home stretch for Division 5A as we see how they started out in Saskatchewan next week. Yeah, Paschtetli, Mr. Fish, and GRH going up against each other, so hopefully GRH can get a win, and then I, not the last one to give him one. We can give that title to Mr. Fish after that. But other than that, yeah, as Calamity mentioned, quite a few battles towards the top of the table.
I I hope Mr. Fish wins that one just because he's Swiss, and I think he also has the skills. As I watched some of, or at least looked at some of his score prior to this one, and I think he can manage to win this one. I believe in him, and also I think Herjemine was 6th in my own competition at the World Cup, and I think so. He can also be a competitor for the promotion spot. I forgot to mention that earlier.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Clement, any matches up that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, it's an interesting week for sure. As you said, Mr. Fish against GRH. At this point, they're both pretty much relegated. They'd need Mr. Fish needs 9 points and GRH needs 10. And with 3 weeks remaining, if we see some perfect scores out of them, maybe. But yeah, it's not going to happen. So they're pretty much playing for pride, and they're going to decide who's going to get the only win of their season right here. Both so far 0-6. And as long as they don't draw somehow, one of them is going to get their first win. Then we've got Geoguessr against Sky Blue, 6 against 7th. And in this one, pretty sure that whoever wins this, well, let's go at it the other way around. Whoever loses this is out of the promotion fight. And whoever wins this still has a pretty decent chance. Then we've got Herjemine against Oli, match, I think it's 2nd against 4th. Also very exciting one. Pretty much similar stuff here. Whoever wins is going to be in a great position for that promotion playoff spot. Whoever loses, a bit on the back foot, but still not over. And yeah, we always see very mixed performances from Kiribati. So against Niels here, it's also going to be a very interesting matchup. This is 5th against 3rd.
Very nice. Well, let's take a look at the other side of Division 5 in our Improved World results. Yeah, 2 red cards in this division means that Xander and Lemon Greb get some free points. Despite that, Xander putting up some very good points there. Yeah, and very nice win for Danny Blonde's Calamity.
Yeah, Danny Blondes is just going about his business, dispatching of Troy, who at least picks up a bonus point, so good for him. And yeah, you mentioned Xander, close to a perfect game. He would have really liked that bonus point there, but just dropped 2 points in one round, and suddenly it's a pretty meaningless great score. It gives him decent bit of score differential, which might come into play later in the season, but that's always a bit, yeah, maybe, but if you get 1 point less, then it doesn't matter at all anymore. And yeah, Bombadil and Clemens both winning some very important games for themselves as well, which makes sort of the mid-table a lot closer.
Yeah, Paschtetli, anything interesting from these results?
I think it's great to see how also Division 5 players can do on a world map. Most of the scores are over 20,000 points. And I think that's also great to see. And also, I forgot what I was gonna say. Anyway, move on.
Okay. Well, moving on, let's take a look at that table. Yeah, and with Laban Greb and Xander getting bye weeks, they just keep that top of those positions there. Danny Blanc with his win also stays up there in that kind of promotion battle. But yeah, Troy Blade and Vincenzo not having the best of weeks, losing, and they drop out of that position there for that one, Calamity.
Yeah, it's looking more and more likely that we'll just see Laban Greb in first, Danny Bonds in second, and then a tough fight for third behind them. So far, Xander's probably had the best results out of the players behind, but points-wise, it's still very close. I think Clemens and Troy both have 1 bye week to go, so they're definitely still in it as well. I think it's probably going to be decided between Xander and Troy. Just from the performances so far, I haven't really seen enough from Vincenzo or Clemens to have high hopes that they'll be fighting for that 3rd place. Maybe with some surprises in there, but otherwise, yeah, I think it's Xander against Troy, and then at the bottom, it'll probably be Vincenzo, Clemens, and Bombadil fighting for that one spot that guarantees safety. And then the other 2 will probably fight in one last match for that 6th place, for the one that doesn't get them relegated, essentially.
Yeah, very, very close here, Paschtetli.
Yeah, and the top between like 5th and also 2nd, we can include 2nd as well, is only between 4 points, and it remains interesting to see how the players are gonna do. And also I wanna say that Sander has 13 aces, and with that the most aces in the division. I think he has it in him to get promoted, when not this season, then certainly next season.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at their fixtures for the coming week. And Calamity, you said that it's going to come down to Xander and Troy Blade. Well, here's the matchup for you. They face each other in Saskatchewan. Bombadil's got a bit of a hill to climb there against Danny Blondes if he wants to avoid relegation spots as well.
Yeah, Troy against Xander, that's essentially the matchup for that 3rd promotion spot. And yeah, Laban Greb has his 2nd bye week in a row. And Danny Blondes probably needs a perfect score if he wants to be in any position to fight for first, because he was also already 2nd last season and then didn't get through the promotion playoffs, so I'm sure he'd like to avoid it if he can. But I think, yeah, he definitely needs a perfect score, and out of the remaining maps, after Saskatchewan, we've got Africa and Romania. I think Saskatchewan is by far the most likely to get a perfect score in. So better get it this week. Otherwise, yeah, he can probably already prepare himself for the promotion playoffs.
Yeah, Paschtetli.
I think there's not that much to mention that hasn't been said yet. Yeah. I have no more comments.
Yeah, pretty kind of relaxing few weeks for Laban Greb at the top of the table, and getting free wins means the pressure is really on everybody else to keep up, so he doesn't run away with things there. Well, that wraps it up for looking at all the divisions, their results, and how things are shaping up for the coming week in Saskatchewan. And now it's time to take a look at the map itself. And yeah, not a whole lot to talk about in the sense of the author giving us any help here in the About section. It is a map by Logjam with over 10,000 locations. Another low average score, though, Calamity, and very few plays. Of course, all of this is going to change after this week.
Yeah, the interesting part is with over 10,000 locations, it's pretty obviously like a polygon generated map.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I've played a lot of seeds and I've not seen like a single location that was either a photosphere or broken coverage or anything like that. So apparently polygons work quite well in Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan itself, I could probably talk about that for like 15 minutes, but let me start off with a citation from Benica, who I asked for a comment on Saskatchewan, and he said, "Been a while since I played, so not much I remember, although the southwest is pretty hilly and pretty much none of the northern half is on Street View, and I guess the best hope is finding a road sign for one of the provincial highways plus a town name." And I'd say that's pretty much accurate from what I've practiced so far. There's just a couple more things I'd like to mention for it. Probably best strategy, as Benica said, go far, go fast. If you're in a rural area, just look for road numbers. You most of the time, especially for the divisions with longer time limits, you'll be able to find one, and then you just need to be able to find that on a map. And nicely enough, Saskatchewan is actually one location where the roads are relatively well ordered. Mostly talking about the 3-digit roads that start with 6 or 7 here. The 2-digit roads are sort of well ordered in the sense that if you find one number, then numbers close by are probably near, but not in a way that you can go, okay, I've got this number that's in this region. But yeah, the 6-digit, the 3-digit roads that start with 6 and 7 are quite nicely ordered. So look at those if you get the chance, and at least sort of memorize the pattern. The 3-digit ones that start with 2 and 3 and the ones that start with 9, just forget about them. You can look for them, but they're in no order whatsoever, and yeah, you can spend a lot of time and then you're not going to find them anyway because they just happen to coincide with a 2-digit highway. Concerning the coverage, just take one look at it. You'll know the northern half of it is not covered because there's barely any roads there. And there's essentially 3 roads going north of sort of the main coverage area. And those are quite distinct as well. So maybe take a look at those. Learning town names, very important. There's lots of town names. But the more you play, the more you'll get familiar with some of them. Generally, you find information at, obviously, intersections. But also, quite important, if you're in a small town, just try and leave the town. And usually at town exits, you'll find the road number as well as the town name as well. And probably, interestingly enough, because there's so many good signs near towns, the worst locations to get, the most difficult ones, and I say difficult, they're actually not that bad, but not a lot is very difficult in Saskatchewan, is in the big cities. It can take you quite a while if you're not too familiar with them to decide if you're in some suburb in Regina or Prince Albert or in Saskatoon. And compared to that, small towns usually quite easy to find. And yeah, the only other difficulty, of course, is if you're in the middle of nowhere and you walk for 4 minutes and then there's no signs anywhere. Mostly happens to be in the southwest. So that's always like a good position to just throw a pin down there if you found absolutely nothing. But yeah, there's also one more thing. Township roads and range roads have something interesting in Saskatchewan. I won't go into explaining that because that would definitely take at least 5 to 10 minutes, and I don't want to right now. But if you want to look into that, it's quite funny or interesting to learn about.
Definitely, yeah. Paschtetli, how has your practice been going in Saskatchewan?
Not too bad, but I have one more tip I came across, and it is to learn bigger roads in bigger cities. So if you come across a big road and you know the name of the road, you can find out in which city you are pretty quickly. And it's most of the time faster to find road signs than city names. That's something I found, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so yeah, pretty much just find some good signs and move on. It kind of reminds me a bit about Botswana, that if you find a sign, it's not too bad. Like you can, especially in the lower divisions, like Calamity said, you have enough time to hunt for those numbers and town names. But I mean, it is Canada, so it's really nicely signed, and I see a lot more distances, which is very nice in some of my practice games. But yeah, pretty standard. Just know the cities, know the roads, and get a feel for the coverage. My idea of Saskatchewan is kind of like a Kansas, if you know America, and that's usually only actually the south part of the coverage, which I've been finding out as I play. You get towards the more of the middle of the actual province, or the north end of the coverage, you get to more woods and kind of, I guess, foresty kind of things, and lakes, rivers kind of stuff. So it definitely changes quite a bit.
It's definitely greener, but it's still not any more densely populated.
Yeah, it's still empty, but it is a little bit greener. And I really want to know if he included in his polygon like way north, because there's lots of photospheres up there.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, so I wondered if he just like cut off his map like towards that north end of the coverage and just said, I'm not going to even worry about that.
Yeah,
that might be helping us out a bit.
I checked on, well, I mean, it doesn't help you out at all because photospheres aren't eligible anyway. So, but it helps you out, I guess, in practice that you won't find them in any seeds. But I checked because, usually, well, not usually, but sometimes you have it. Even if you've got an area where there's no coverage, essentially, you have like some small towns where one or two towns might be covered. But that's not the case in Saskatchewan. There is literally no coverage north of essentially Clearwater River.
Very nice. Well, that was our look at this week and the week to come. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to play Saskatchewan. I'm sure Calamity always plays early, already has. I'm not sure about you, Paschtetli. But yeah,
I'm actually gonna play today or tomorrow, and I'm gonna practice now.
Well, good luck in that practice, and good luck in the seeds, and we will see you all next week. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.